Hola, it's Joe Partavilla, and taking the plunge and opening your own fitness business can be a bit intimidating, and joining me today is the author and creator of Athlete in the Game of Life. His name is Matt Peale. Hey Matt, how are you?
Great, Joe. I'm wonderful today. What's happening?
Not much. Before we get into the athlete in the game of life, I want to talk about how you got here. It's safe to say that you've spent a lot of time in gyms during the course of your life.
Oh, absolutely. And even before spending time in gyms, I spent time in my room doing push-ups and pull-ups and sit-ups and things like that. So it's always just been a passion of mine that I've enjoyed doing, and somehow I ended up making a career out of it down the road.
How did you catch the bug as a young person? Because I'm always fascinated to whether it's, following the footsteps of a family member or seeing a celebrity or just picking up a magazine. Because you're probably old enough to remember how people used to read fitness magazines. I know they're still around, but I think
I had mine, the Muscle and Fitness or something like that.
Yes, Muscle and Fitness, yes, or Men's Health. What was it for you? What was the reason you caught the bug?
Yeah, I've always played sports since I was first grade. I played soccer. That's the majority of my life, and into college and a little bit after college. So fitness has always been there, or playing sports and being an athlete. And then I've kind of been the scrawny kid, honestly, when growing up. And I was a guest the other week on another podcast, and we kind of got into this too. And it was a little bit of cathartic going, wow, that's really why I did it. So I've always been the skinny kid. I was 5'9", 140 pounds when I graduated high school, but I played sports, so it wasn't like I was just skinny. And I just felt like I wanted something else on me. I wanted a little bit of muscle on me. So that's why I just started doing the push-ups like in 7th grade and in 8th grade. And then my stepdad bought me a pull-up bar that I think everybody's had. And then in high school, they bought me a curl bar with some weights. And so I would just do that in my room because I graduated. I'm 45. When I was in high school, the only kids that were allowed to get into the gym at school were if you're football, basketball, or baseball. If you played any other sport, you weren't allowed. Like, well, the soccer players, the tennis players, they don't need it, which now is very opposite. Everybody, including the girls' golf team, has a 0 PE and is in there working out.
Well, also, Matt, I'm a Gen Xer as well, and I played football in high school poorly, but I remember even in the early 90s, it was not really, I guess, accepted for anyone outside of a football player to do any weight training. It just was not one of those things. I remember, I think, Michael Jordan and some of those great players from the late 80s and 90s were the ones who sort of introduced weight training into basketball. But before that, you never saw it. And then suddenly you saw these baseball guys like the Jose Cansecos and Mark McGuire's come into the world. But it makes sense. I mean, even though, high schools were short-sighted at the time because they didn't realize it, but it was just a matter of time before all the sports evolved into adding some sort of element of weight training.
Yeah, absolutely. And if not, you just had to do it on your own. It's not like we weren't doing push-ups and jumps and lunges and everything in other sports that in a sense is still a resistance type training. We were just not allowed to touch the weight room. Like when you go in to change, don't even look at it. You can go use the bathroom, but don't even look in the weight room. That's not for you.
So you're this kid in high school. Is at this point, I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time for both of us. Was the fitness industry like something that was a thing that people in high school thought about? Like, was that like, were you like, hey, listen, I could be a personal trainer or I could do some sort of coaching? What was the mindset back then?
No, you played sports. I have a marketing degree. Honestly, getting the fitness was nothing on my mind when I graduated college in 1997. I just enjoyed working out. And I had a high school friend who went to college together, and he's a fraternity brother of mine. And he got into bodybuilding. And I think this is really where it kind of started to change. Like I would really kind of like doing this in the back of my mind. He got into bodybuilding and got into supplements. When he did that, that's, I think, where it kind of lit the fire. He actually graduated with a criminal justice degree, but then went a master's in nutrition and became a personal trainer. And he has some nutrition stores now in the Mobile, Alabama area. Seeing, I was like, I really like, that's what I like doing. Although I was in outside sales and successful outside sales and some other things, and then life leads you along different paths and opportunities, and here I go now. I had an opportunity to become a personal trainer in 08.
That's crazy. So, I mean, I always do this sort of like movie moments, like It's a Wonderful Life type thing. But do you think you would have gotten into the fitness world and become the leader in the field that you have become if you hadn't ran into that friend who's lifting weights and going to the tanning salon and looking like an Oompa Loompa, like did you see, would that be possible?
No, if Jeff did not get into that much of it, because after we graduated, we lived together in a house with a couple of fraternity brothers, and seeing all that, I was like, ooh, I kind of like takes that supplement. Let me start taking those powders and those potions and those pills and all that stuff like that. And that's where it really said, okay, well, let me just not. We've always done it, I guess, in college, but let's try to take it to another level. And then, of course, when you're that age, you're like, let's get big. Let's get big. Doesn't matter how that I can't get big. I'm 5'9" right now, weigh 167 pounds. I'm 9% body fat. I'm not a big dude, but let's still get big. Let's still get big. And then you realize as you get older, I'm just not going to get that big.
Right. So your buddy shows you the way into this world of weight training and heavyweight fitness. So what was your next step for you? Was it signing up for a NASM accreditation? What was the next thing you did?
Yeah, so in '08, changed jobs and was going to try and go into business with him in one of his stores. And then the recession hit of '08. I was like, well, there goes an opportunity for any type of financing. And I was working at a supplement store just to get my feet wet. And I became a trainer through NESTA at that point, just to, again, let me get a little bit more experience in this and then move over to Mobile and go in business with him. A guy I've known since high school, and we get along great, and here life goes. Well, when we couldn't get the financing and I already had the trainer, I was like, well, I'm not going to make a living working for $8.55 an hour stocking shelves at the vitamin shop. So that's why I went to work for 24 Hour Fitness in Laguna Hills and became a trainer there, and then got a couple other certifications, and NASM was one of the ones along the way, and became a fitness manager there. And then it just, obviously, now my path changed. So up until then, from 97 to '08, it was marketing, and then I worked for a little bit as a superintendent at the Port of Los Angeles with managing longshoremen. So fitness was nowhere near any of that.
So how did the evolution of Matt Peale go from, working at the 24-hour fitness, working your way up the food chain there, to now becoming the author and creator of Athlete in the Game of Life?
I think that's where the blend of having a marketing degree, having a business background, because being a personal trainer is outside sales. You're selling yourself and you're selling your services. And that's where overall, I think a lot of trainers miss the boat. They just want to, for example, say, I just train. Well, no, you don't. You're actually a salesman. You have to go out and engage with prospective customers like any other business to sign them up so that you can make revenue. Coming into now, the pandemic actually gave me the opportunity to step up besides just being a trainer and become a corrective exercise specialist through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, or NASM. And I did that in March because I didn't have a place to go into work. The gym was closed. And I've always wanted to figure out what can I do now to kick what I'm doing up a notch. I've been a member of GKIC, a gold member, for a couple of years. I went to Super Conference in Orlando a couple of years ago, and that's where they really talked about authoring a book. And it put it into the back of my head. That's what I need to do to separate and differentiate myself. And so it just marinates, and it marinates like a lot of ideas that we have until you act upon it. And then this opportunity came through, and I was able to find some funding through, again, pandemic funding, and write the book. And it's kind of, on my terms and be on my terms. And then what I've seen as a person that is, you're around my age, Joe, is life changes. It's not about getting big anymore, right? It's about how can I just be better at what I am, get rid of some of these aches and pains from sitting around. And the executives and the professionals and the older adults and even kids that I see that we're just sitting all day long at this computer, and we're developing this chronic pain. And that's why I became a corrective exercise specialist, because I know you have to work on this first before you're going to be better at golf. You're going to be better at tennis. You're going to enjoy going out and gardening. And that's where the whole theme of Athlete in the Game of Life, because we play the game of life every day, whatever it is. You don't have to go to the gym if you want to enjoy hiking, but you have constant pain in your knees or you have constant headaches and you're trying to figure out, why can't I shake this? Well, there's a reason. And surgery is not the answer, and popping some more pills is not the answer. That's where the guidance that I provide in the book, I think, helps people out to realize, man, if I just make a couple changes here and there, I can enjoy what I do even more.
It is funny, though. You mentioned that this sort of arose from the pandemic, and you just briefly mentioned before that your one of your business ventures failed during the '08 recession. What were the differences to you in terms of trying to get something going from the ground up compared to the Great Recession, as they called it, to now this great pandemic?
Life, I would just say experience. We go through things, obviously we learn stuff through failure, and then we get just a little bit more dialed in on what it is we want to do. Kind of look back on that and say, I'm really glad it did fail because I'm not overly jazzed on specifically working with supplements. They're important and it's great, but that's not what fires me up. So does because I see it. I see the way people are hunched over, and this working from home as it's come in, and we're stuck at our dining room tables. One of the things, kind of a character that was created with the book, is someone called Howie the Executive, and now I'm trying to personify that. So it's it's me wearing a headband and just a dress shirt and tie and shorts, just workout shorts, because that's what people are doing. They're not getting dressed up, as long as you can see from the above up for your Zoom call. You're at the dining room table. You're in a position that is not supposed to be in that position, in that chair for 8 to 10 hours a day. You can't get off the phone. You can't get off the computer. You can't get off your device. And you're just remolding yourself and closing yourself in.
And so, I mean, is it basically your target demographic are white collar workers?
Definitely. People, the executive, the professional, even, the older adults that have been forced to shelter in place because they weren't allowed to go into gyms. They were highly encouraged, stay home, stay home, stay home. So now they're sitting on the couch more, whether they're binge watching Netflix and Hulu or on Facebook for, 9 hours straight. They're in the same position. And of course, they're naturally trying to fight off cognitive decline, fight off themselves degenerating down, because that's what we do, unfortunately, as we get older, is we are going to have our spine get more disc problems, more back problems, more pain problems as we try to fight the natural effects of aging. So that's really who this book is speaking to, is the executive, the professional, the older adult that has been stuck sitting around and doesn't really want to. They want to get back out. They want to play more sport. They want to play more golf. They want to play more tennis. Maybe they want to do a little bit more in the gym. Maybe they want to hike, run, whatever it may be. And they just can't seem to figure out why. Why do I always have this pain? Why can't I just turn this corner? And is it because I'm old? What is it? And I think the book sheds a lot of light on that.
That's cool. And, there are people of the opinion that believe the reason that the United States was hit so hard by that pandemic, outside of political reasons or whatever, government interventions we had, was the fact that this country was just not in good shape. Obviously, there's much to be said about what we eat here in this country, how our lifestyles. Do you think that's a big reason as to why the pandemic shook us the way it did?
100%. If you go by, I know the CDC is taking a lot of flack here, but if you go by their numbers on obesity, for example, one third of Americans, and approaching that for kids also, one third of Americans classified as obese by their BMI according to the CDC. What are the top reasons for death from COVID? Are obesity related, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, right? Those are your top two. Heart disease is the number one killer in America anyways, regardless. As I drive by here in my town, I'm sure in every other town, who's got the biggest line? Popeyes, Chick-fil-A. So are people helping themselves even though they know my comorbidities are higher because I have these health problems? No. And the answer is no, they're not. We're continuing to go down this road even though it's proven our chance of death is higher if you live this lifestyle. And it doesn't seem to faze people.
Do you think that the government is missing out on a huge opportunity to stress a lot of the things you just said, or is it just maybe that it would get lost in the weeds because we're still fighting over whether we should wear masks or not, or whether we should open up everything completely and have everyone just live their life? Are they missing a big opportunity to be like, hey, listen, we've essentially shut down a large portion of our economy for 6 to 7 months now. This be a good time for you to get in shape. Do you think this is a big missed opportunity by the leaders and the powers that be?
I do. I absolutely do. And I think that, though, feeds into the culture of now. I mean, we go to the doctor for a pill to counteract that we're sad. And then we get too high or feeling well. No, we got to get another pill to counteract that to bring it down. So now you got two pills just to try and keep you regulated. Then there's another pill for that, another pill for that, and that's what I would say Americans, I don't know about the rest of the world, but we're looking for that pill. I just want to take that pill to regulate it, or not really put in the work. Well, there is a little bit of work that needs to be done. It's not really that painful. It's a few adjustments, but it's not painful work to get around the block a little bit, or maybe not eat that fried food, have something baked. As I tell my clients, if you don't like Brussels sprouts, don't eat Brussels sprouts. That's fine. Eat carrots if you like carrots. So stick with what you enjoy eating, but it doesn't have to not taste good. And you don't have to go in there and sweat for 3 hours a day. That's not it either. What kind of quality of life is that?
What are some of the elements of athlete in the game of life that can be introduced to folks that we were just talking about, this sedentary population of folks, whether have poor eating habits or just don't have any fitness regimen to follow? Are there a couple things that people can jump into right away with the athlete in the game of life?
Absolutely. And those things it sounds somewhat counterintuitive. For example, when we're sitting and we stand up, one of the first things we do is we think, oh my gosh, I need to stretch my hamstrings. And we try and reach down, touch our toes and get those stretched out. Really, it's the opposite. Your hamstrings are already stretched from sitting and being in that position. You want to stretch things like your quadriceps, the muscles on top, or your hip flexors. That helps to bring you back in line and can help reduce your low back pain, hip pain, a lot of forward lean when you're in there. That's one thing that you can work on for that. And you can do some exercises to strengthen your hamstrings. So stretching your quadriceps and your hip flexors and strengthening your hamstrings. Another thing you can do is stretch out your chest muscles or your pec muscles. Like put your arm at a 90-degree angle like an L in a doorway. Lean forward, stretch that. When we're sitting there at a computer and our hands are on the keyboard, our chest really gets tight because it's contracted because you're leaning over it the whole time. So learn to stretch that out. You can do some exercises to strengthen your upper back. I would say just right off the bat, those are two things that, executives, professionals, like I said, people that are at the computer all day, older adults can do. That can help them feel better and bring them back in a good postural alignment.
All right. So before I let you go, you've seen the way this fitness industry has evolved from the way it grew in the early 90s to the explosion in the late 90s, 2000s. But now we're in this post-pandemic world where some communities where gyms are not available, and if they are, it's limited capacity. How are you feeling about the future of your industry?
I think it's still strong. People still want to get back into a facility. Now I think facilities might have to adjust to have some more outdoor opportunities, but it's still a community. And as humans, we are community-based. We need each other. We need extended families to survive. All mammals do, if you look at how mammals operate in the animal kingdom out there. You don't just have one female or one male trying to care. There's others involved. I think the industry just has to shift a little bit and maybe offer some more outdoor opportunities, and that'll bring people back in. And then as time gets on, we get comfortable and we all shift back inside like it never happened. So that's where I see an opportunity for fitness, besides just being in your home and doing it, having some outdoor opportunities here for some of the gyms and some of the health clubs.
Now, does it scare you when you see that story in Canada from a few weeks ago about a spin class basically became a super spreader event with dozens of people getting sick? I mean, how do you deal with those kind of class fitness settings? Because, obviously those have exploded recently, whether it's a spin class, Peloton, Barre, any one of these classroom type fitness modalities. What do you say about those?
I say that is not common. There was a study that came out and talked about that gyms themselves are not spreaders of corona. Overall, are there going to be situations like this? Absolutely. It's going to happen. You're always going to have an outlier of some kind or another. But overall, the majority of cases are not coming from a gym environment. I think that's because based on the health of the people that are in there. They don't have these other health indicators that are the ones that really are the ones get sick and affected and end up passing away.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's going back to one of our points that we mentioned earlier is the fact that people that are in better shape have been able to fight off the virus. I mean, obviously, there have been cases of people getting really sick from it who were whether young or in great shape. It happens, but and I think it goes back to a conversation that is probably way above our pay grade is whether how much we're willing to risk. What is the risk calculus? If you're a gym rat and you feel the need, you've got to work out because you're missing that community and missing that rush you get from being at the gym. You're like, hey, listen, my risk calculus is I feel like I'm a healthy adult. I can go in the gym and risk it, right? I mean, I think that's basically whether we're talking about fitness or the food industry. It's all about what your risk calculus is.
100% correct. Yeah, I'm a pro economy guy. I fully admit it, and I'm okay to admit I'm pro economy. I think it's good. We need to have jobs. We need to go back and I don't want to get into this, make it massively political, but there are steps that need to be taken to get some of that back. And that's up to each individual, however you want to do it. But those steps do need to start happening.
His name is Matt Peale. He is the author and creator of The Athlete in the Game of Life. Matt, thanks so much for the time. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you having me on.
And that's it for this edition of Forbes Books Radio, available for you to listen and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.